There are as many tea drinking habits as there are tea drinkers around the world. But how have mine changed over the years? Hey everyone, I'm Sigi and I love all things puer. But today I'm here to make more of a ponderous video. I'm going to look at how I am drinking tea today, how I used to drink tea a few years ago, what kind of the differences are, and maybe investigate how and why my habits changed over the years. Because I think looking at that might be interesting and it might help us understand ourselves a bit better. So, as I get ready to start drinking, what I'm having today is a nice high roasted Da Hong Pao in my little teapot here. When did I start drinking tea? Like properly? It was, I'd say back in 2018, I had already been drinking Japanese green teas fairly seriously for a few years by that point. But 2018 is when I really sort of expanded my horizons and got into Chinese tea. So at that point, as I think it happens with a lot of people, I was almost immediately drawn to puer tea. I ordered a whole bunch of samples of all sorts of different teas, and puer tea ended up being the one that kind of stuck with me the most during this early period. However, uh, as you all might know, and as that might in part be the reason why I'm here and talking to you all today, uh, I didn't really end up moving on from puer tea all that much for I'd say, pretty long time. I was focused on puer tea and, excuse me, tried to explore as much as possible. There is a certain, let's say, excitement and novelty that comes with drinking high quality Chinese tea at the start that makes you just want to sample broadly, try as many different things as possible. And of course, this makes sense. You're new to tea, you haven't quite figured out what you like yet. So, in order to do that, you need to try as many different things as possible and kind of see what sticks. But I'm not really sure if you can talk about something like a habit at that point, because a habit is something that is created by, yeah, repetition, essentially, something you keep doing all the time. Of course, while you are in that exploratory phase, the perhaps habit, or what you may think of as a habit, of trying new teas every day, maybe keeping detailed notes about those teas to see how they compare to each other, all of these things might constitute a habit for you. But, and this is kind of where we get into a more personal territory, what I have noticed as I've kept drinking over the years is that I went through this exploratory phase until I found kind of the things I want to stick with, or at least the things I kind of thought I want to stick with, which might seem surprising to some of you, but for a long time was actually young and fresh puer, and less the more aged or mature one I prefer these days. And that's kind of what I would be buying in higher quantities. That's what I would be drinking almost every day. And that was kind of the first, I'd say, proper habit I found after exploring Chinese tea. Just daily doses of fresh puer. It tastes nice. It's aromatic. Uh, yeah, it was just kind of a pleasant and engaging, perhaps even somewhat invigorating sensation to drink fresh puer every day. And at that time, the kind of thought I had was that not much would change, that I had found what I like, and that that was kind of it, and that I was more or less committed to this type of tea and enjoying this type of tea. But, of course, as is often the case, things change over time, and so did my habit of drinking young puer. I think this might have in part been because, and that's something I had always felt, was that I get very hungry quite quickly when I drink puer. Like I drink a fresh tea and then I probably need to eat something within about 2 hours of doing so. And since I usually end up drinking tea somewhere during the mid afternoon, let's say like 3 to 4 p.m., that didn't quite fit into the rest of my schedule in a way, because if I drank puer at that time, then I would likely have to eat dinner by about 6 p.m. at the latest, which for somebody like me who tends to stay up relatively late is a bit too early. Because then, obviously, if I stay up until like 12 until 1 a.m. or something, then I might get hungry again by that point. So that, I think, might have been a factor that influenced or that maybe kicked off another change of habit in me. I started looking for teas that are a bit more comfortable on my stomach. Because, I mean, let's face it, like if you drink fresh puer every day, then it's probably not going to be great for your stomach in the long run. It might lead to some issues. So I became interested in sort of the next best thing, if you want to call it that, which is aged puer. Not much of a leap there, is it? And yeah, aged puer is another place where I ended up sticking around for a fairly long time. And don't get me wrong, I still really like aged puer, but there is one difficulty. If you want tea that is like well along in terms of maturity and not just semi-aged, and you then also want like decent tea, it's gonna be both not easy to find and quite expensive. So it's almost prohibitively difficult to make a daily drinking habit when it comes to mature puer, just because it's so difficult to find, and the good ones are just more expensive than what I am able or willing to spend on tea. And I think that's where another change in habit came from. Kind of facing the reality of this acknowledging that yes, I like puer tea the most. I like aged puer tea the most. But when I drink my favorite type of tea, I want to have a pleasant experience and one where it's maybe worth fully focusing on the tea. As you all might be aware as well, when you're drinking tea every day, then there might be many situations where you're having tea but you can't fully focus on it. And if you take an expensive, aged, really like nice and complex puer tea, it almost feels like you've squandered the experience with that tea by not being able to give it the attention it deserves. So, for me at least, when it comes to future puer tea purchases and kind of the way I drink puer tea, it's not going to be an everyday affair anymore, like how it used to be for several years. And it's going to move more into finding puer teas that are special. Usually, uh, unfortunately, probably not the cheaper ones. And maybe having one of those like once or twice a week when I'm really in the mood and I can relax and have a nice tea session where I can dedicate my attention to the tea. Of course, uh, that doesn't change that I am still a tea drinker at heart. I want to drink tea every day. So, what can I do? Of course, once again, I need to change my habits. And I guess we're already seeing some of that here right now, given that I am not drinking puer tea in this video. But what I'm looking for, if we kind of consider the trajectory of tea consumption that I've had over the course of my tea drinking career, if you want to call it that, I've started looking for teas that are pleasant and comfortable to drink, that are very enjoyable, that are still stimulating in certain ways. It doesn't have to be stimulating in the way puer tea is, but stimulating in the sense that, yeah, I can pay attention to this if I want to. There's some interesting stuff going on there, that kind of thing. And at the same time, those teas should also be affordable. One thing that has helped me in this regard was moving beyond what I considered the kind of scope of what I'm interested in the world of tea. As you all know, my main interest used to be puer tea, but as I've outlined before, like drinking special, expensive, mature shang puer every day is just not feasible. So I looked beyond that and I found, I wouldn't say replacements, but I found teas that are much better suited for the kind of habitual everyday drinking that I do nowadays. The kind of drinking where I don't pay 100% attention to the tea, but I still want certain experiences, certain sensations from my tea. And I think the two kind of teas I found that have worked really well for me to suit that habit are yellow tea and high roasted oolong, be it a high roast Tieguanyin or a high roast Yancha. It doesn't matter too much. They are all very pleasant, and more importantly, both yellow tea and these high roast oolongs come at a much more affordable price point, while I still get exactly the kind of thing I want out of my tea session. So yeah, this this is kind of how my habits have changed over the years. There is kind of another factor that also changed along with that. That I think was sort of running a bit in the background, but I do want to point a little bit of attention to it, and that is purchasing habits, because your habit of how you concretely drink tea, the tea where you select for that, it all kind of ties together because it's all a system where these different points connect to form the larger construct that is the tea habit. And yeah, your purchase habits are also, I think, quite significant in that regard, because along this journey of changing your tea habits, you start to understand things better. And I don't necessarily mean that you understand tea itself better or you like become more knowledgeable about tea. Obviously, that's also a factor, but what you really start to understand better is yourself and your relation to tea. And as that sort of relation crystallizes over the years and you really start to understand yourself better, your purchase habits will also change along with that. So, for example, I mentioned when I was still at the start of my tea journey, I purchased a lot of different tea samples. I was trying new stuff every day, etc. Nowadays, it's almost the exact opposite of that. If I find something that suits my needs and it comes at an appropriate price, then I'm not gonna buy like 15 different versions of that. I'm gonna find the one that like speaks to me or that I really like, and then I buy a lot of that one tea because I know, yeah, okay, that is something I know I'm gonna be drinking for quite a while, and I'm gonna be happy drinking this for quite a while. So I need the kind of quantity that accommodates almost daily drinking of such teas. So, as like a recent example, this tea that I'm drinking right now, a four times roasted dahong pao that might appear on the nannuoshan shop within the next few months. This is a tea that I initially got 100 grams of, and then I ordered another 300 grams. So I have it kind of stocked for a while, and there's a good chance I might order even more of it in the future, just because this is a tea that I've had often and I just want to keep drinking. And it, I don't know, as I've outlined with this whole idea behind it being kind of a system that constructs your habits, that in a way also reflects back upon itself, because these all of these things kind of come together. Like this high roasted oolong, I find tastes a bit nicer when I use these cups to drink it or when I prepare it in this teapot, and it works well with the way I tend to brew tea, etc. Like it all kind of fits together, and your use your tea habits perhaps as a way to guide you towards what you really want to get out of tea on a daily basis. I think that's kind of the gist of the message here. Like, be be mindful of how you approach tea. Investigate your own habits. Investigate how these habits change and what that might indicate for you. What kind of what type of drinker you are, what it really is that you're looking for in the tea experience, and use that information you gained to gain a better understanding of yourself. Now, I'm going to finish this tea a bit later. If you enjoyed this kind of more conversational video, then please leave a like, perhaps leave a comment and tell me, like, leave a comment where you reflect on your own tea habits and think about how it how you really approach tea. And then maybe we can have a discussion about that and learn a bit more about each other. And of course, if you aren't subscribed to nannuoshan yet, I highly recommend that you change that. There's going to be more videos both from me and from other people, and they're all quite interesting and enjoyable, I hope. So that's it from me. I hope this video helped you investigate a few things about yourself, maybe learn something, and we're going to see each other next time. Goodbye.